Welcome to the year 2026. We are standing at a historical crossroads where the very foundation of the traditional social contract is dissolving into a landscape of calculated silence. Look closely at our primary specimen, a 42-year-old man, born in 1985, navigating the hyper-compressed economic landscape of the Korean peninsula with the precision of a seasoned architect. He is not a failure by any metric. In fact, he sits atop a 600 million won fortress, a primary residence representing years of disciplined accumulation. With an annual income exceeding 50 million won, he holds a position of extreme stability that most in this high-pressure society can only dream of. Yet, he is the face of a silent revolution known as rational withdrawal. To the global elite, these numbers might seem modest, but within this geographic pressure cooker, they are the impenetrable walls of a sovereign state. This man was raised in a family that understood the mechanics of wealth, moving through complex real estate cycles with surgical precision. He has learned the one fundamental truth the marriage industrial complex tries to bury under layers of romantic propaganda. Financial margin is the only true form of sovereignty available to the modern individual. The irony is thick. Society brands men like him as irresponsible. It is a masterpiece of psychological projection. We are witnessing a matriarchal narrative attempt to frame a man's refusal to subsidize a stranger's lifestyle as a moral catastrophe. But our subject has run the numbers. He has simulated his 20-year future with cold, calculating logic. He knows that the exact second a child enters the equation, the psychological and financial margin for asset multiplication evaporates. He is choosing to compound his wealth through global ETFs and high-yield dividend assets, rather than liquidating his life's work to fund a 3-hour wedding hall fantasy and a lifetime of high-interest debt. The traditional social contract is dead. It was a deal that demanded total male sacrifice in exchange for authority and respect. But that bridge has been burned from both ends. The authority is gone, and the respect has been replaced by open contempt. Today, the rational response is the total withdrawal of what we call the moral subsidy. These men are no longer interested in taking responsibility for a demographic that views them as little more than an automated telemachine with a pulse. The opposition argues that men are unwilling to sacrifice. But in a market where the male typically brings 70% to 90% of the initial capital to a union, the sacrifice is fundamentally asymmetric. Responsibility has become a euphemism for subsidized consumption. If a man with 600 million won in assets is irresponsible, what do we call a woman with 30 million won in debt and a luxury travel history? Our subjects have identified this as a terminal investment where the return on investment is negative from day one. This is the birth of the fortress, and the walls are only getting higher. The socio-economic landscape we inhabit in 2026 is a wasteland of mismatched expectations. We are witnessing a market-clearing event where the entry price for marriage has far outpaced the actual value of the domestic union. Data reveals a massive disparity in basic financial discipline. Men in their 30s are documented as saving 70% to 80% of their total income, often living on instant noodles and pure discipline to build a foundation. Meanwhile, their female counterparts are frequently categorized as negative savers, spending 110% of their earnings on overseas travel, luxury bags, and those elusive healing experiences. When these two demographics meet at the marriage buffet, the woman expects the man to take responsibility for her total lack of financial restraint. One 42-year-old subject in our research correctly identifies this as a parasitic transaction disguised as a social right. The statistics are a cold slap to the face of any romantic. With the divorce rate hovering around 41%, the long-term investment of a wedding has a failure rate higher than most tech startups. Consider the case of one 40-year-old practitioner of the FIRE movement financial independence, retire early. He has been retired for 10 years on a 600 million won principal, living entirely off investment returns without a single day of labor. He looks at the married serfs with a mix of pity and mockery. These are men forced to work until age 70 to pay for a lifestyle for a partner who does not respect them and children who barely know them. His words are chillingly direct. I am not spending my principal. I am spending my life. If I had married, I would have spent both by now. From a global perspective, the local male is looking at the European model, specifically France and Northern Europe, where the contractual nature of marriage has dissolved into de facto unions. In those regions, 70% of births occur out of wedlock, and the legal system often bypasses the asset division traps that characterize the local courts. The modern man realizes he's living in a legal dinosaur era. If he cannot access the easy exit system found in Europe, his only one logical choice is the no-entry system. As societies modernize, the lifelong mutual guarantee of marriage becomes an obsolete insurance product that nobody wants to pay the premium for. This shift has accelerated the rise of the ghost class, high-value men who exist entirely outside the traditional social fabric. They do not buy family vehicles or contribute to the private education industrial complex. Instead, they funneled their resources into the solo economy. One subject in our data purchased a 19-pyong apartment and owns it outright after years of avoiding the financial drain of dating. They invest in global indices and prepare for the future where their only partner is a sophisticated AI or a service robot. Think about the metaphor of the breadwinner asylum. For decades, the man was told that if he worked hard and sacrificed, he would be the king of his castle. He entered that asylum willingly, believing it was a palace. Today, he looks through the bars and sees that the queen is actually a warden and the castle is a high-security debtor's prison. He is standing outside the gates, watching the inmates fight over the scraps of their own labor, while he enjoys the absolute air of financial sovereignty. This transition is not a tragedy. It is an evolution toward a streamlined existence where the individual is no longer a subsidy for a broken system. Beyond the financial walls, the architecture of human connection has been re-engineered into a protocol of extreme risk assessment. We see this in the detection strategy where men no longer search for a partner, but scan for liabilities. One 42-year-old pharmacist in our dataset implements a simulated life stress test before even suggesting a second meeting. If a potential partner displays an economic or ideological friction that threatens his fortress strategy, she is instantly liquidated from his social portfolio. He understands that a minor argument is not just a disagreement, it is a legal precursor to a property division lawsuit. This is the logic of identifying defective inventory before a contract is signed. It mirrors the collapse of the late Roman Empire, where the head of the family lost his legal standing and stopped producing citizens for a state that no longer protected his interests. A 40-year-old software engineer defines love as a high-latency, low-bandwidth signal, while risk is a real-time reality. With a 41% chance of a total system crash, he refuses to play a game where the stakes include a 50% loss of assets. This creates a binary between the doting father, a wage slave to vanity, and the invisible man, the master of his own seconds. Consider the 60-year-old subject who finalized a late-life divorce. He describes his current existence in a Bangkok hotel as pure bliss. For 30 years, he was more alone inside his marriage than he is now among strangers. At least here, no one hates him for his income level. He has calculated that the cost of avoiding a lonely death is 1.5 billion won, a price he refuses to pay for a social insurance policy that offers no protection. When the local market is cornered and prices are rigged, the rational investor looks for strategic arbitrage. International marriage is now viewed as a global outsourcing of intimacy, where men seek partners from cultures that still value respect and cooperation. By exiting the domestic status competition, they escape the luxury bag tax that defines the Korean Union. Imagine marriage as a subscription service with a 50% exit fee of your total assets. This is the sunk cost trap, forcing men to pay a monthly premium of their sanity to avoid a one-time liquidation. Looking toward 2030, technical solutions are replacing biological needs. Advanced robotics and emotional AI offer companionship without the risk of a divorce court taking 50% of your apartment. Men are also adopting a zero-day divorce mechanism by living together without legal registration, testing the union without granting the state administrative rights over their bank accounts. The authority of the patriarch is dead, yet the duty of the provider is kept on life support, turning the traditional head of the family into a provider slave. In this socio-economic reality, staying single is not an act of selfishness, but a hyper-responsibility to one's own security and the truth. It is the act of a surgeon cutting out the cancer of a terminal system. We are watching a controlled demolition of the traditional market. The 42-year-old, the 60-year-old, and the 40-year-old are the success stories of this era. They remain spectators, guarding their 600 million won fortresses. The liquidation is complete. Fuel the truth at dating in Korea, support the structure, stay safe in the lounge.